Maybe I mentioned this before, but a few years ago, I was into couch surfing. And if you don't know what couch surfing is, it's a hospitality exchange service that people who use the app can request free short term stays in the host person's home. And there are meetups with people interested in travel, so it's kind of a social thing. There's even a meetup here in Armenia once a month or so. It's usually customary to provide a gift to the host party, like a six pack of beer or small trinket from your home country, bottle of wine, or some folks that have stayed with me have cooked me a meal. They held a small concert in my living room, etc., etc. It's how I met my wife, as a matter of fact. But at the time I was doing this, I had a wooden table that my dad and I made, and on the top of it, I had folks sign it. It was like a guest book, so to speak. One guy drew a picture, and then that set the tone. The next person had to equal or outdo this guy, so he drew a picture, and then pretty soon there were quotes and city skylines and outlines of countries all over that tabletop. It was cool. And the one thing I really miss about that time. But there was one guy who stayed, and he wrote this: "Far better is it to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to take rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much or suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat." Theodore Roosevelt. Of all the things that people wrote or drew on that table, that one quote has stayed with me the longest. And also the quote by Mark Twain: "Travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all of one's lifetime." You gotta get out there, man. You gotta get out there. Go to a local play or a festival, or travel to a different town, or go to a never-before restaurant, or better yet, do something radically different. Visit someone in jail, or write a letter to the editor, or dare I say it? Travel to a different country? I can recommend a couple if you want. The point is, just get out there and do something different. Even if it's reading a different genre of a book that you've never read before, or taking a new way home from work, just so it's different. Anyway, that's what I did this past week. Just to drive the new streets, know different areas of Armenia, get off the main roads and into the neighborhoods. And this is where I met Johnny Law. My name is Matt Hofer, and this is Walkabout. Actually, it wasn't Johnny Law. It was Lay Wani. And he materialized out of thin air like some sort of cheap Vegas magic trick featuring Burt Wheeler. Whoop, whoop. And just like that, Frank Poncherello was there with his Suzuki V Storm 650. I had no idea what I'd done to warrant this special attention, but my wife sure did, and man, she was furious. You turn left at a no left turn intersection. I'm sure there were many colorful adjectives bouncing around in her little mind that she didn't speak, which I'm grateful for. Now, ironically, the copper's name was John, spelled J-H-O-N. He parks in front of us to cut off our avenue of escape and walks up to my window, which I had by now rolled down. He's speaking Spanish lightning fast, and so I interrupt him with my "Lo siento, señor, no habla español." And without missing a beat, he leans in the window and continues talking to my wife. He collects my driver's license, cedula, car documents, and insurance verification. He scans my driver's license and hands everything back, all the while speaking so fast, like he's in a competition or something. I mean, I get it. It's his spiel. and I had one back in the day. But man, he was talking fast. He reaches for his gun, but then I realize it's a portable printer on his belt, and without looking, he rips off the little printed piece of paper and hands it to me, and quick as thought, he's back on his bike and disappears into traffic. What the hell just happened? I mean, I didn't say that, but that's exactly what I was thinking. We sat there for a while as my wife tried to explain what happened slowly and methodically. I'm sure as a calming technique, so she wouldn't beam me with something convenient within arm's reach located somewhere in the car. You made a very dangerous left turn at that intersection back there. The fine is 1,423,500 pesos. He said he reduced the fine to 603,930 pesos. But if you pay by Friday and go to a driving class, it will be half, 310,000 pesos. Today was Sunday. I had so many questions, and "Are you upset?" was not one of them. I mean, that would have been rhetorical. The first question was, where do I go and pay and attend this class? The second question was more theoretical. A ticket is 1,423,500 pesos, because that's the Colombian minimum wage for a month. Translated into dollars, that's about $340. Punch reduced the ticket to 603,930 pesos, which is about $144. And with the school, 310,000 pesos, which is about $74. So the question is, how does the regular average Joe or Pepe pay this fine? And in a week, no less. I mean, to me, it just seemed like an unbearable, inordinate tax on the poor. As I delve further into the traffic laws and fines of Colombia, I learned some interesting things. The first is that the most heinous and severe traffic infractions like DUI, which is on a whole different thing here, and I'll explain that in a second, or driving without a driver's license, or failure to stop at a red light or stop sign, or traveling in the opposite direction of traffic, and even though I didn't find it, apparently turning left improperly ranks among the worst of the worst. 30 daily minimum wages as a fine. Like I said, DUI down here is on a whole other level. Colombia has one of the strictest DUI laws in the world, and certainly in all of the Americas. They don't play around at all. In the US, when I was a young copper, the DUI was a 0.1 BAC, or blood alcohol content, which is it's a formula for a simple conversion of milligrams to milliliters of ethanol in the blood. And then later, that 0.1 was reduced to 0.08. However, in Colombia, the BAC, 0.02, or 20 milligrams to 100 milliliters of ethanol in the body, or in the blood, or just a swig of Scope mouthwash. The traffic police administer the breath test roadside, and if you're over, ooh la la, hell hath no fury. A first-time DUI has a fine associated with 30 minimum wage days, like I said before. A second time? Well, you have to pay 15% of the commercial value of the car you're driving. For a 0.02 violation, your license is suspended for 6 months or a year. A second time could be 10 years or forever. If you get in a crash and hurt or kill somebody, you're going to go to jail for between 2 and 18 years. And of course, your license will be permanently revoked. And oh yeah, if that's not enough, there's community service, whatever that would look like. I mean, probably cleaning up poop from the homeless people that wander around. I mean, I could only imagine what horror that would be. So, if you plan a night on the town, get a cab that costs 20,000 pesos or less, or just under $5. And you'll be saving yourself a world of hurt. Infractions such as speeding and failure to yield, or failure to secure load, or fueling a motor vehicle with an engine running, failure to use seat belts, blocking a roadway or intersection, improper parking. Well, all of that results in fines that are equal to 15 daily minimum wages. Driving with an expired driver's license, or only driving with one license plate, or driving with loud music, carrying kids under the age of 10 in the front seat, well, that warrants a fine equal to 8 daily minimum wages. And finally, walking on the side of the road, clinging to vehicles, lane splitting, driving without lights, failure to obey traffic signs, but apparently not the no left turn sign, is only 4 daily minimum wages. So what does that translate to? Well, the daily minimum wage in Colombia is 47,450 pesos, or about $11.36, give or take. So 4 minimum wage days is 189,800 pesos, or about $45. 8 minimum wage days is 379,600 pesos, or $90. 15 minimum wage days is 711,750 pesos, or about $170. And then finally, 30 minimum wage days is the 1,423,500 pesos, or what I got, equal to about $340. Now, I'm not complaining at all. I would happily go to a 2-hour class and pay half my fine all day, every day. I mean, $74 is a heck of a lot better than $340. So thank you very much, Ponch. But still, that doesn't answer my question. How does the average Joe pay? Well, it turns out I was able to pay anywhere. Armenia, Circassia, Calicut, online using the SIMIT system, whatever that stands for, or basically anywhere in the country where there's a traffic authority office, or the place where you get your driver's license. Remember several episodes ago, I think at episode 13 called Incencia, I talked about getting my driver's license? Well, you can go there and pay your fine at no discount or online using the SIMIT system. Or you can pay 50% of your fine if you take a class, which is about 2 hours. And as it turns out, you can do this every time you get a ticket, not just the first time. The discount office in La Tabaida, anyway, is Centro Integral de Atención, or the CIA office. It's a subcontracted business who collects the fine and the fee and puts on a defensive driving course. But what if I can't pay in a week, or 2 weeks, or a month? I mean, you can imagine the extreme burden of a person on a minimum wage job and just trying to pay a traffic ticket. In the United States, most places give you a month to come up with your cash. The reasoning, of course, is by then you'll have received at least one paycheck. But what if you don't have a job? Well, then you go to the court and talk to the judge. Well, what if I can't pay? Then a warrant will be issued for your arrest, and you can pay with your time in jail. So all of this is like going through my mind at lightning speed because that's what I'm used to. Well, how far from that reality can I be in Colombia here? And I'm telling you, it's pretty dang far. So it turns out that Colombia gives you 5 days to pay at 50%, and then 15 or 20 days at 20%, and so on and so forth, until after a month, it's 100% of the fine you have to pay. Then, after that, you get a whole year to pay the fine before the government starts charging you interest. Did you catch that? You get a whole year, and then interest. So not only is there no warrant ever, you never go to jail for not paying. It's all administrative. So if you don't pay your fine, they can put a lien on your house or make it so you can't update your driver's license or rent a car or buy property until all that fines are cleaned up. Now, I see infractions all day, every day. I mean, out the wazoo. And why coppers don't do anything about it suddenly makes sense to me. It's because the fines are meaningless to a kid or to a homeless person or someone in extreme poverty. So the police don't mess with them. The police only go after the people who, in their minds, can pay the fine in a year or so. And that's why law enforcement here is so reactive. I mean, I'll go after some knucklehead gringo that makes an improper turn, but not the poor schlub clinging to the back of a truck just trying to make it up the hill. And they're not going to go after the mom with 3 kids on the motor scooter just trying to get them back to school and herself to work. I mean, it takes me a minute, but the pieces in my mind are slowly falling into place. And so I have these aha moments. Ah, that's why I see that. Or, okay. All right, that's why I see that thing over there. And then suddenly, bang! Rear-ended at a roundabout on the way to La Tabida to pay my fine. Dang it, man. What's the Morton Salt tagline? Oh, yeah. When it rains, it pours. I get out of the car, and as we're cussing and discussing, a transit motor jock, probably named John Baker, rolls up on his bike and tells us to clear the intersection or he'll fine us all for blocking traffic. And then he says, solve it amongst yourselves. And he rides off into the traffic and disappears too. What in the wide world of sports just happened? I turn left and it affects no one, and I get this huge fine that I'm on my way to pay, by the way. And this guy puts a huge dent in my bumper, and nothing happens. And I get threatened to receive a ticket and told to move along. I mean, jumping Jehoshaphat. Did all that just happen? Yes, it did. But okay, so full disclosure, the guy jumps under my car and he does some banging and pops them over back into place, and no harm, no foul, I guess. But still, come on, man. We drive to La Tabida and find the correct place to do the fingerprint scan to get into the system. And then about 2 hours later, I scan out of the system. And because I don't speak Spanish and this is just all a money thing, I don't have to take the class, which was nice. But instead, I asked a bunch of questions. And the answers to most of those questions I just shared with you. Turns out the lady doing the fingerprint scanning has a boyfriend who has a brother who lives in Bozeman, Montana. And in case you're wondering how I found all this out without speaking Spanish, well, my very lovely, attractive, beautiful, smart, caring, tolerant, very patient, very knowledgeable, intelligent wife is a heck of a translator. And I'll put a link in the description of the Colombia traffic laws below. And don't worry, you can hit the translate into English button if you're really curious. Thanks for tuning in and taking the time. Share with your friends, leave a comment or a question. And you can check out my Instagram page on Walkabout, Facebook page, Walkabout 751, or YouTube, where I put some of the videos into the narrative and you can kind of have a gander and see what it's like down here driving around in Armenia, Colombia. And we'll catch you next time on Walkabout.